Hello everyone, and welcome back to Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, the Lost Planeswalker, and today I have a before you buy the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set. So this is Magic's new set. It's the second core set of the year that is bringing all of Magic's baddies to an old western town. I am super excited about this set. There is a bunch of new cards we've seen. We've gotten commander deck reveals, so we know who is going to be the commanders, and some really cool bonus sheet cards for this set. So first off, just so everybody knows, I'm going to talk about the new keywords we're going to see in this set because it's quite interesting. Then I'm going to talk about the new main set cards, some of the bonus sheets, and then look at those commander decks and other products. So let's start out by looking at the two new keywords for the set, which is plot and commit a crime so far. This is obviously based around an old western set, so we're trying to get some of those old western sounding keywords like plotting and committing a crime. So plot is a pretty cool card that says to plot a card, you pay a mana cost and exile this card from your hand, or in Fizzlethip's case, one card we're going to look at later, the top of your library, and you put it into exile. Then you may cast this card as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost, and plot as a sorcery. So an interesting way to think about this, we've kind of got some other cards like this with Foretell, right? We could pay part of the card first, and then it went into exile out of our hand, and then we could pay it later. Now, in Foretell's case, you're only paying a certain amount of mana, and then you're paying a certain amount or an X amount later on. Where plot, you're paying the full cost of the card up front and casting it for free later on, meaning you could build up a whole library of cards that are in exile and then just one after another cast them. But notably, you have to cast this on a later turn, so you can't plot and then cast it from exile, which is gonna mean you're gonna have to think up some strategies in order to do so. Committing a crime, though, is a mechanic that is actually going to be pretty easy, and they kind of retrospectively, changed it, so you can commit a crime in any number of ways. But whenever you cast a spell or activate an ability that targets an opponent or their stuff, this is spells, permanents, their hand, their library, or their graveyard, you are committing a crime. Now, not to confuse this with like untargeted removal, that is not a crime, if it just targets everything versus specifically targeting an opponent. But something like affecting a player, maybe it's a helpful effect, like you give them life or you put counters on them, that is committing a crime as well. So committing a crime is going to have some cool connotations, and we have two cards so far that have committing a crime on them, so I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of these as we get more spoilers. So let's now look at the main set cards, and obviously this is an Outlaw set, and we've already seen that with some of the cards revealed, and it's going to be very interesting to learn more. Now, we haven't talked a lot about the Omen paths that started at the end of the March of the Machine that just opened up all across all the planes of Magic, allowing people to cross over. And this is actually the conclusion to the Omen path arc of the Magic the Gathering story so far. Next time, when we return to Bloomborough, it's going to be the Dragon Storm arc, or whatever they call it. So you're going to see full effect how the Omen paths are working, and this plane is just full of bad guys from all over. Specifically, we did get some spoilers, and we know that there's going to be Kellen, we know there's going to be Vraska, we know there's, a bunch of other players that I'm very interested to see them, like Rakdos, appearing on this plane. But let's start out by talking about some of the cards we do know about. And I'll start by talking about the legendary creatures. So let's look at Fizzlethip, Lost on the Range, Oko the Ringleader, and Tiny Bones the Pickpocket. Fizzlethip, Lost on the Range, 1 blue, legendary creature, homunculus, War 2. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. The top card of your library has plot, and the plot cost is equal to its mana cost, and you may plot non-land cards from the top of your library. So Fizzlethip is pretty sick because we could just put a ton of things into exile. Using his ability, maybe we're looking for a certain card, or maybe we're playing a bunch of cards that cost 0. So we can kind of bank up a ton of things in exile while we're also digging through our deck for a storm win or something like that. I built a deck all around this. If you want to check that out, check the description. But I think Fizzlethip is going to be a pretty cool commander that is going to get more broken the more kind of combos the community, finds. So this is definitely one to look out for. But Oko, the Ringleader, he is the Planeswalker for this set. Like they said, moving forward, there's just going to be one Planeswalker moving forward in every set. And Oko is probably the best Planeswalker we've seen in a while. So 2 green-blue, legendary Planeswalker Oko. At the beginning of combat on your turn, Oko, the Ringleader, becomes a copy of up to 1 target creature you control until end of turn, except he has hexproof. +1, draw 2 cards. If you've committed a crime this turn, discard a card, otherwise discard 2. -1, create a 3/3 green elk creature token, and -5 for each other non-land permanent you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. That is insane. Ticking him up twice is going to potentially draw you, let's say, 2 cards, because you're maybe going to be targeting stuff. So draw 2 cards, and then you just get to create a copy of everything on your board. There is no scenario where this effect does not just push you ahead of everybody else in the game. Oko last time was broken. Being able to +1 to turn something into an elk was stupid good. Oko again is stupid good. This card is already going for, $40 to $50 based on the art, and I can see why. And then Tiny Bones, the Pickpocket. 1 black mana, legendary creature, skeleton rogue with death touch. Whenever Tiny Bones, the Pickpocket, deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target non-land permanent card from that player's graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. Tiny Bones, again, that's a broken effect. I also build a deck around Tiny Bones, if you want to check that out. It's full of discarding, it's full of sacrificing, it's full of reanimation. This is a busted deck, and I think you could do it very much with a very low mana curve, making Tiny Bones one of the biggest threats to come out in a while. He particularly reminds me of Giada, Font of Hope. She was an angel from New Capenna that kind of, she's okay. And then when people started playing her, oh no, this is the best version of this card there's ever been. And I think Tiny Bones is kind of on that fence there. Tiny Bones is little and kind of deceitful, and you're like, well, yeah, you could get some stuff out, but you're going to make your opponents discard their entire hands, and now you're just playing everybody's deck, and they're just watching you beat them with their own stuff. So I think Tiny Bones is going to be incredibly strong. There's some incredibly strong strategies, and like I said, if you want to check out the deck I built for that, look in the description below. But the other 2 cards we got for the main set that were spoiled so far is Duelist of the Mind and Hell to Pay. So Duelist of the Mind is the World Championship Nathan Stewart, I believe. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but he, just like we got last year, we got another World Championship card, and this card is 1 in a blue, flying vigilance. Duelist of the Mind's power is equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. Pretty interesting effect. Whenever you commit a crime, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. This is a pretty cool effect. I don't think Nathaniel here, Duelist of the Mind, is going to be nearly as powerful as the one we received last year, but it is cool to see that they are continuing to do this. And Hell to Pay is a sorcery with Hell to Pay deals X damage to target creature. Create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the amount of excess damage dealt to a creature this way. This is a great card. I mean, I talk about this all the time when you're playing decks, storm decks in particular, or decks that, discount instant sorceries heavily. You're going to be able to cast this for a lot less mana and probably generate more treasure tokens than you did when you cast this spell to begin with. So I love this card. I love this effect. It's very powerful, and I'm sure this card is going to end up in a ton of decks. So it is very cool to see. So that's all we got for the main set, but we did receive some other cards I think are worth looking at, because this set in particular has 2 additional bonus sheets in it. Think similar to the Wilds of Eldraine, we got the enchantment bonus sheet, but they decided to kind of combine a couple here, because if you didn't know, I learned that they were supposed to do a epilogue set like they did with March of the Machine, but so many people hated that idea that they just combined them all into the main set, which is really cool actually. So the 2 bonus sheets we're going to get here are Breaking News and the Big Score. So the 2 Breaking News cards we got so far are Crime and Punishment, and then Thoughtseize. Both of these pretty cool cards. Thoughtseize is definitely a card that is played in a ton of formats. I love this art for it. This art in general, the Breaking News art, is sick. I'm hoping to see more of this. But these are just reprinted cards that we're going to see in this set. But in addition to that, we have the Big Score, which I think is way more interesting because the cards are way more interesting. So the couple cards we got for the Big Score is Nexus of Becoming and the Sword of Wealth and Power, which really surprised me because I didn't believe we were going to get another Sword of, but we did in this set. So starting off, the Nexus of Becoming is 6 generic mana. Artifact. At the beginning of combat on your turn, draw a card, then you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a 3/3 golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. So Nexus of Becoming basically just lets us exile stuff, and then we get a free version of it on the battlefield every turn, whether it's an artifact or creature, but it makes it into a artifact creature. So there is so many cards where, yeah, I want to play this 9-drop spell. Maybe it's Portal Portal to Phyrexia. So you get a 3/3 artifact creature version of this 9-drop spell that when it enters, everybody has to sack 2 creatures, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to get something back. Now, you do end up exiling the original card, but I'm not going to complain too much. And if you can do this over and over again on a couple of turns, this could get out of hand very quickly. Now, the Sword of Wealth and Power is an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from instant and sorceries. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose a new target for the copy. So I'm going to say the best part about the other swords is that they're protection from a particular color, which usually in a commander game means that you can swing into somebody without having to worry about it being blocked. But in this case, it's protected from instant and sorceries, which is also pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Being able to protect it from, basically any kill spell or whatnot is going to keep it on the board. And I can really see this card in particular being played in a deck where you're already giving your commander some form of evasion because it's not protected from creatures. So I don't actually know how playable this card is going to be. Obviously, I think, creating a treasure is okay. You can create treasures in other ways that aren't, having to swing in, but then also being able to copy the next instant sorcery spell is going to be insane. I think this card is going to find homes in decks that are trying to play the biggest instant sorcery spells or the most powerful instant sorcery spells around, because getting double your value is definitely worth including a card like this in your deck. So it's something very interesting to see, and I can't wait to see what people come up with as to what cards should be put into where this card fits in a lot of decks. So that's it right now for the main set, breaking news, and big score. But now let's quickly look at the commander decks, because we're getting 4 commander decks with this set, and we're getting 2 noticeable faces in this set. We have Desert Bloom, Quick Draw, Grand Larceny, and Most Wanted. Notably, I believe the story is already out for Desert Bloom and Quick Draw. These 2 characters, I believe, are from this plane, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am. But they are kind of the main story points so far, so if you want to go read those, check that out. But the Grand Larceny and Most Wanted decks are notable characters. We have Gonti in the Grand Larceny deck and Olivia Voldaren in the Most Wanted deck. And I think most interesting is Olivia here is white as well as red and black. Now, we've never seen a Mardu Olivia before. The only Mardu vampire that's actually playable is Edgar Markov. There's another couple, I think, that you could play, but I'm very excited to see what Olivia brings to the table here, because that is not something we're used to seeing. But the Desert Bloom deck is all about discarding lands and then growing them back, which I think is quite neat. Our hero here, I don't remember his name, has a little cactus buddy, and I think you're going to be able to grow deserts or something back from your graveyard, so I think this is going to be a very cool effect. The Quick Draw deck is all about slinging multiple spells and then unleashing big turns, so this might be a Storm Commander, slinging a bunch of little spells and then unleashing a big spell. This is something we may have not seen before, and I think sadly the most generic of all of them is the Grand Larceny. Steal cards and generate mana is exactly what this color combo does, and it really doesn't tell you anything about the deck. So I hope Gonti here is a little more interesting in what he does, but cool concept altogether, with this Outlaws of Thunder Junction theme. And Olivia Voldaren here, the Most Wanted deck, earn treasure and buy Outlaws. Now, noticeably in the past, some of the Olivias have been able to turn cards into vampires and then steal them, which is a very powerful effect. Obviously, you turn somebody's best creature or their commander into a vampire, then steal it, and they have no way of getting it back, basically. So I think that this is an interesting strategy, maybe a new take on that old strategy in this deck. But nonetheless, this is going to be a very, very interesting set of commander decks that I will be picking one of each up just to see how well they play. And with that, I just want to say that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this kind of gave you some insight on what this set's going to be about, some things to look forward to. I know that there's a ton of outlaw themes. We're going to be seeing just all of the bad guys from all of these planes gathering up into this one place. And we'll see what's going on. I think this is going to kind of set up the story. So I think this story arc in particular is going to be very important for how we go forward. Maybe they form a group and they're going to try and, I don't know, take over a whole plane like they did here, or, turn into the Phyrexians themselves and try to take over the whole multiverse. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. But I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and please comment down below, is there someone you're expecting to see? We already got some Veraska supposed to be in the set. Rakdos is another card we're supposed to see in the set. I'm excited to see what version of Kellen we get in this set. What are you interested in? What are you excited for? Please leave that in the comments down below. In addition, if you would share this with a friend, leave a like and subscribe, that would mean the world to me. Maybe you know someone who's super excited about this set coming out. Please share this video. It really does help me, and I would really appreciate the exposure. It just means so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And today's Scryfall card of the day is Luxodon Warhammer. A crafter must imbue her weapon with a part of her soul, something that Phyrexians are incapable of doing. Melira, Slyvok, Outcast. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.